One of our buddies from Macon, Georgia said, hey, give us the inside scoop on that trip to Georgia. How was it like behind the scenes? Happy to do so as much as I can. I wish so badly that I could take you guys with me on some of these trips. I do as much as I can with the Instagram story at Late Kick Josh. But you would not believe the intensity in these places. Georgia as much as anyone. The intensity in that building in late February, off the charts. You can't have a mail-it-in day. Think about your place of business. Wherever you work, you could drive a Pepsi truck for all I know. You could work for an insurance company. There are days where you show up to work, you just don't have it, and it's okay. You'll just make up for it tomorrow. It doesn't exist there. It doesn't exist there. Everyone's walking a tightrope every single minute of every day. Everyone's moving in the facility with the exact same purpose. It's like, I love trains. It's like watching a freight train move by at 60 miles an hour, and every car is going the exact same direction and exact same destination in mind. But the intensity you would expect in the middle of a game week in October or November, it's like that year-round. It's like that year-round. The only two places that I've ever felt it to that degree are Bama under Saban, Georgia under Smart. Obviously, a lot of connectivity there, a lot of connective tissue, and a lot of the folks at one place have worked at the other place. It's amazing. It's amazing. You feel a heightened sense of awareness, even though, like, I'm not on the staff. I have nothing to do with their operation. But when you're in the building doing work of your own, just in that environment, just being plugged in that environment and immersed in that kind of culture, even for a day, it impacts you. Not in a negative way either. The lengths and the detail that they go to for their culture building stand out to me a whole lot. I won't delve into details because a lot of that stuff we get access to with the trade-off that we shut our mouths about it. But just suffice it to say, when you watch them in the fall, it's not an accident the way they play. They got really talented football players. They got the best coaching staff in the SEC. But the culture's rock solid too. That's why, if you'll remember, this time last year, there were some negative headlines about the program. They had problems with like street racing, and they had tragedy happen earlier in the year, and then subsequently they had some guys get in trouble, which they handled internally, but there was a certain publication in the state that came out and accused them of a lot of stuff that was false, and the people responsible for that have since been fired. That's how false it was. But the accusation of them having a culture problem, they took it really personally because they didn't have one. They had problems, but it wasn't a culture. It wasn't rooted in bad culture. The reason they took it so personal is because they've actually been as aggressive as any program out there in installing culture building in the positive direction. And you see it when you go in there. It's just most people don't get that access. But it's pretty impressive. And you're talking about taking time away from football activities to do that stuff too. You don't get to add hours in the day. You got to decide. We're reallocating because that stuff's that important. The staff churn, we got to see it. We got to see it because when I was over there last week, it's right when Del McGee had left, the running backs coach had left to take the head coaching job at Georgia State. Now, they love that. They love that. I mean, most of these big-time programs have support staffs where virtually every guy wants to either be a coordinator or a head coach one day. They're all alphas. That's how they hire. That's the makeup of most of those staffs. Georgia's no different. So, I mean, everyone is ecstatic for Del McGee, former coach at Carver of Columbus down there in my backyard. But when those coaches leave, they know how good your building is, and they want to take as many guys from that building as they can. And that's always a fun little delicate balance to observe of we're happy to help the guy off to his next job, and then as soon as he gets it, hey, don't look back here. You don't want any of these guys. No, you go hire from somewhere else. And it's delicate. It's delicate, and got to observe a little bit of that last week, but that's college football, man. That happens everywhere. The misconception also of whining versus legit concern. It's something we touched on with Kirby when we talked to him, and it's something that every time I talk with coaches, it's always reinforced, is right now parts of the sport are a mess, And so a lot of coaches are complaining about it. Complaining sometimes is misconstrued across the board as whining. And the thinking, obviously, is, well, you get paid a lot of money, deal with it. Which, on one hand, is an understandable attitude. But on the other hand, what I try and emphasize, because of the guys that we're around or talking to a lot, is, no, a lot of them aren't whining. In fact, a lot of them kind of love the grind. Like, they're happy to embrace that. They're not looking for you to take work off their plate or anything like that. Kirby put it really well last week. He said, I don't care about the rest of it. If I could just know who's on my team for a year, that'd be fine. Everything else, we'll deal with it. It's hard work. It's what we get paid for. If you could just tell me who's going to be on my team for that year, not 4 years, that year, I'd be okay. I agree with him. That's not the boldest ask. That's not the tallest ask in the world, to just want to know who's on your team. And there are a million different loopholes and a bunch of red tape around that statement. But from 10,000 feet, I think it's pretty valid. There wasn't a lot of, man, I wish they'd install another dead period. Man, I wish I could take another vacation. It wasn't anything like that. Some of these dudes, if they had more vacation, would still come into the office because that's just the nomadic lifestyle they live. So I thought some valid concerns were raised and some tangible reasons were given on that front. And I will also tell you guys this. Now, mainly Georgia fans will care about this. Georgia just landed the number 1 recruiting class in the country. You know that. They got some guys out of the portal. You know that. Ben Ursch is a tight end from Stanford. I keep an eye on him. I think they like him a lot. And therefore, I think I like him a lot. So just keep an eye on the old tight end from Stanford. He was banged up last year, had a little shoulder issue, I think. So didn't put up big numbers last year. But they got him in there. And obviously, they've got a deep tight end room already, but that one's a little bit different skill set. So just keep an eye on him, Ben Ursch.